Actually, today I wanted to talk to you about something I feel is very important, and we are always we always have trouble with this in our service. Um, either us or the kids that we are serving. But it's a big fight and it's an ongoing fight. And like you see, the topic of today is feelings of rejection. Feelings of rejection that sometimes many of us feel, and we have kids in our classes that feel the same thing as well, that they are rejected, that no one likes them, no one accepts them, no one accommodates them or invites them, and so on. And I'm going to talk about it in general, so we can take it, of course, for ourselves, or we can take it to help our kids as well. So I'm going to talk about it from two of the Bible characters. The first one is Moses. And this feeling started with Moses in this story. Remember this story when Moses, after growing up in the palace, he was about 40 years old, and he thought about helping his people. And he thought at the time that he was at the right, this is the right time. I'm in the right position, in the right place. I have the power to help my people. And he went and tried to look at what his people are going through. And he saw an Egyptian persecuting a Hebrew. And he looked, to the right and the left and didn't see anyone. And he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. So this is the story. Now it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. I want you to pay attention to a couple of things here. First of all, Moses was grown, and he felt that he is grown up enough to help. And he felt that he has what it takes to help his people. And then he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. Notice here that God is not involved in this. Of course, Moses has zeal in his heart. And Moses actually is one of the characters that always wanted to help others, like you see in his life. And this was something that God gave him. And he saw the Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and he looked this way and that way. This word here, or this phrase here, has a very big significance. Look this way and that way means what? That he was concerned about the people, concerned about what the people thought about him, what the people, how the people regarded him, what's their opinion about him, and so on. And then he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, two Hebrew men were fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, why are you striking your companion? Then he said, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? This word here, who made you a prince and a judge over us? This came from a Hebrew. And Moses was going out of the palace to help the Hebrews. So this hit him really hard. This saying of the Hebrew guy, it hit him really hard. And when you love someone and then you find that that person is not accepting you, it's harder than when it comes from someone that you don't know, for example. So Moses felt that he was rejected by his people. He was rejected by his people. How do we know that? After 40 years, after he went to the wilderness for 40 years, and he to Midian, and he stayed there, and he had a wife and children, and then 40 years later, when he was 80 years old, God appeared to him in the burning bush, and God told him, you know what, I am going to send you to help the people. Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So see what Moses said. But Moses said to God, who am I? Who am I? Who am I was a very good thing to say. And remember when the Bible said at the beginning, Moses was grown and he went out. This was his initiative. I want to help the people. But in it, there was, I'm depending on myself. I'm depending on, the things that I have, whether it's that I'm the prince of Egypt, that I'm smart, that I'm powerful, and so on. But after 40 years, he gave up on himself, all these things, and he said, who am I? That was a beautiful thing to say, that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. So he said, God said to him, I will certainly be with you. Sorry, the eye is right here. I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. So here Moses is giving some excuses. The first thing is, I am not good enough. And like I said, this is something that's really good. He didn't trust in himself anymore. But God told him, don't worry, I will help you. I will certainly be with you. That's excellent, to not trust in ourselves, but trust in God. Then the second time, then Moses said to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? Notice here that he's reluctant about the people. He knows that the people are not easy. They are probably going to have some questions. And God answered that as well. And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Pay attention back to the next one. Then Moses answered and said, but suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, the Lord has not appeared to you. You see, this is how we know that Moses was still feeling rejected by his people. Even after 40 years, that bitterness of the guy that told him, who made you prince or judge over us, stayed with him for a long time, even up to 40 years. So here, there is a few things that we want to talk about. First of all, sometimes when I feel rejected by people, sometimes I generalize. And what does this mean? Let's say I go to church and I serve in the church and I get along with a lot of people in church and a lot of people like me in church. But then there is a few people that don't get along with me, or I feel, and again, I say I feel that they don't like. Sometimes all what's on my mind is those few people. And I generalize and I say, you know what? No one likes me at church. Well, this is completely wrong. Why? Because it's only a few people. Maybe those people are 5% of the people I know. Maybe they are 10%. That means that there is 90% or more that actually like me and get along with me. But I don't focus on that 90%. And for example, Moses, he didn't deal with, there was about 3 million Jews in that time, and there was 600 men. If every man has 4 in his family, like his wife and 3 kids, or even 2, that's more than 2 million people. He only dealt with one of them, but he felt that he was rejected by all. So that's one of the bigger mistakes that we make, is that we generalize. Also, another mistake is that I am always very sensitive to how people look at me and how people treat me when I am thinking about myself. And notice here, the first time that Moses went, he went by his might, by his power. So it was very crucial to him how people thought about him, because it's all about me. But then when God sent him, we will see that the people rejected him again, but it wasn't as bad as the first time. And let's continue reading. He said, so the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? He said, a rod, and so on. Afterward, Moses and Aaron. Now, at the end, Moses, gave in, and he said, okay, I will go. And he went with Aaron, and he said afterward, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." So they went and spoke with Pharaoh, and of course, the first thing was that Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor I will let Israel go." So the first thing that he hit was rejection again. He went to Pharaoh and Pharaoh rejected him. But notice something, if you continue reading in the dialogue of the burning bush, you will see that God explained that to him beforehand. He told him, "You will go to Pharaoh, Pharaoh will not accept, and I will strike the Egyptians with plagues, and then he will let you go." And God did not hide this from him. Notice here something that is very nice, that God is working with Moses, like God is working with me. We all get, or we all struggle with feelings of rejections from other people at some points in our lives, and maybe not once, maybe more than once. And here Moses was rejected by the Hebrew when he was 40 years old, and now when he was 80 years old, he got rejected by Pharaoh. Not only that, but and this actually is something that God allowed to happen. Once he went out of the palace of Pharaoh, Pharaoh called like all his leaders and said, they are lazy, those Hebrews are lazy, make them work harder. And they beat him and persecuted them, and they beat the taskmasters of the Hebrews. So the taskmasters met Moses and Aaron, and it says then as they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them, and they said to them, "Let the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us." So imagine, this is the beginning of Moses' service. He is going to the people, and at first he went and told them that God is going to save you, and they were very happy. And then he went to Pharaoh, and this happened, and all of them told Moses, "You know what? Like, since you came, it's much worse now." So imagine, the first encounter of the service is like this. And maybe God actually meant for that to happen, because he wanted to treat that thing in Moses. He wanted to treat that feeling of rejection in him. He told him that I will take care of it, but I will take care of it my way. And this was really hard, by the way, for someone who has been feeling rejected for 40 years. And then once he goes and starts his service, he's opposed with rejection again. Then it's really hard for him. But now God is with him. He actually went to God after this and told him, "Why did you send me? Why did you even send me to those people? They don't want me, and you are not saving your people." That's what he told God. And God told him, "Don't worry, you will see what I'm going to do." As if God knows exactly what we go through. Not as if, God definitely knows what we go through. In fact, the one who got rejected more than anyone else is actually Christ, Jesus. He got rejected from many people, and he got rejected for no reason. And sometimes maybe people don't get along with me because, I made a mistake or something. But in the case of Christ, he doesn't have sin. He didn't do anything wrong, but at the same time, a lot of people rejected him. And this was, of course, very hard, for him. But then after that, see what happens. When Moses, didn't give up. He didn't say to God, "You know what, that's enough. They rejected me before. They rejected me now. I quit." He didn't say that. He continued with God. And this is something that we need to do in our lives. And sometimes it's hard for me to continue. It's not easy. It's something that I'm suffering from, and it's actually exaggerated in the service. But when I keep obeying God, and God is sending me to not only to serve the people, but also to change me personally. And when I keep going along with God, this is what happened. Thus Israel saw after the 10 plagues and after parting the sea. After he parted the Red Sea, and the next day the Hebrews crossed, and they saw all the Egyptians dead on the shore. It says, "Thus Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done in Egypt, So the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. And you know how great Moses was in their eyes after that. In fact, Moses was arguably the greatest character in the whole Old Testament. And maybe Abraham was the father, Moses was the deliverer, David was the king, but these three, but Moses was definitely like someone who they all consider as their savior. And Moses was so great in the eyes of those Hebrews, especially that generation and all the generations afterward, to the extent that when he died, God buried him personally, and he didn't let the people know about the place of his burial, so the people would not worship him, would not fall into that, worshiping him as someone other than God. So this is what happened because he followed God, and because he focused on God, and because he set his eyes on the mission that God sent him to do. But if he's still looking at, what are the people going to say about me? Are the people going to like me or not? Are the people going to respect me or not? Do they say good things about me? Do they say bad things about me? If he gave his ear to all these things and gave his heart to all these things, he wouldn't have been Moses that we know. So that's one thing. Last thing in the life of Moses that we want to talk about pertaining to this topic is something that is mentioned in the book of Numbers, like later on in his life. Moses said about himself, "Now the man Moses was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth." In fact, in other translations, he was very calmer than any other person on the face of the earth. And both of them are nice. If we take it as humble, we said before that I need to humble myself in order for me not to pay attention to what other people say about me. And focus on the mission, focus on what God wants me to do, focus on God himself. And also being calm, meaning that he is peaceful, that he's at peace with himself. And also when I'm looking right and left to what people are saying about me, I'm not at peace with myself. I am hesitant. I am not, solid. Like I don't feel stable enough. That's why I need satisfaction from other people. I need approval from other people. And this is a big problem. So in general, let's talk about a couple of things in the life of Moses. First, the one we talked about already, don't generalize. Don't generalize when you say nobody likes me, because this statement is 99% of the time not true. In fact, it's very hard to find someone that no one likes. Second, if someone rebukes me, doesn't mean that he or she hate or reject me. Sometimes we feel rejected from our parents, from our father of confession, from a spiritual guide, from other people, from our friends. Why? Because they mentioned something or they criticized us about something, and they mentioned something that we need to work on. When someone mentions something that I need to work on, that's actually something very good. This person is actually better for me than other people who praise me, because the people who praise me are not going to benefit me. I'm going to have my problems, nothing is going to change. It's going to stay the same. But the people who rebuke me are the doctors, the physicians that God sent me in order to improve myself. And of course, in order to achieve that and accept their criticism, accept criticism because criticism is constructive. And of course, here I want to say, on the other hand, we as parents or as Sunday school teachers or as spiritual guides or as servants, we have to pay attention to how we criticize. There is constructive criticism and there is destructive criticism. If I'm criticizing and I'm mad and I don't accept the person in front of me, of course, this is very destructive. And maybe sometimes we do that, and we have to say sorry, and we have to apologize for this. But if I give a constructive criticism, I see something, I love the person in front of me, but at the same time, it's like, a father and a son, or a mother and a son or daughter. Like, we love our children, but at the same time, we want them to be better. So the criticism will get across in a nice way. So love has to be there. So that's in the life of Moses. In the life of Joseph, that's the second character that we're going to talk about briefly. In the case of Joseph, in the case of Moses, we said maybe he didn't, it wasn't necessary for him to feel rejected because he generalized. But in the case of Joseph, it was definitely rejection. Bottom line, his brothers hated him, and his brothers envied him. The story started when he used to tell his brothers about his dreams. It says, and his brothers said to him, shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So they hated him. They hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. And the first chance they had when Jacob sent him with the food for them, now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near him, they conspired against him to kill him. So they envied him, they hated him, they wanted to kill him. Then they said to one another, look, this dreamer is coming, come therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. You can definitely see and feel the envy and the hatred from his brothers. And this is very actually like extremely hard, because this is coming from brothers. And this is coming from brothers whom Joseph loved. Joseph actually loved his brothers. And if you study the character of Joseph, you will see that Joseph had a very good heart, and he loved them. He loved them like truly. And they met his love with hatred. So this is, to be honest, this is really hard. And not a lot of people could actually tolerate what Joseph went through. Joseph, at the time when he got sold, he was 17 years old. So, this is like the prime of his life. He stayed in Egypt in between the house of Potiphar and being in prison until he was 30 years old. When he came out of prison, he was 30 years old. So imagine someone spending 13 years, some of the best years of his life, being in jail and being a slave in a far land, and being actually sold by his brothers. If Joseph was not focusing on God, he would have never been the Joseph that we know about. In fact, the easiest thing for Joseph to do was to give in, to say, you know what, nobody likes me, everybody rejects me. And actually, in that case, Joseph would have been right, because this came from his brothers. So he would have thought, like, this is what happened to me, no one likes me, let me do whatever. And he was tempted in the house of Potiphar. But the reason why he didn't fall into this temptation, and the reason why he actually didn't fall into this negative loop of feeling rejected, is because he focused on God. When Potiphar's wife tempted him, he said, how can I do this great evil and before the Lord? He knows that God is looking at him all the time. He feels the presence of God. Joseph was amazing in focusing on God. We said that one of the big things in not feeling rejected is to focus on God, like Moses did afterwards, after he worked with God. Joseph always had that. It said the Lord was with Joseph, and Joseph was a successful man. So Joseph felt God's presence the whole time. And then, the rest of the story, that they sold him and so on. More than 20 years later, after passing all these hard times, when he met his brothers again, what did Joseph say? He said, but now do not therefore be grieved. That Joseph speaking to his brothers, or angry. He doesn't want them to be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. How beautiful is this? In fact, I'm pretty sure that 99% of the people, if they were in Joseph's shoes, they would have felt completely different from this. But Joseph focused on God. Yes, what happened to me is terrible. And it is. What happened to him was very bad. It's a disaster. But I'm going to focus on God. I don't care about what happened to me. I'm going to focus on God. God meant something. And Joseph was able to come to terms with himself that God allowed all this to happen. I mean, it's extremely hard, but he allowed it to happen because he wants me in this position. He wants me here in Egypt, the second man in Egypt. He wants me to save the world from the famine. How many times can we see things this way? I see everything bad that happened to me, all the people who actually don't like me, or all the people who maybe did something wrong towards me, or something evil toward me. And I see that this was actually something that God allowed. So I would be here now, and I would be in this position now. I would be in this service now. Because maybe if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have been here. Maybe if Joseph stayed in the house of Jacob and he was the beloved son, and maybe if his brothers got along with him, he wouldn't have been the Joseph that we know about now. So Joseph focused on these things. God always loves me. Yes, I may, and again, I said in the case of Moses, and this is actually, most of the time we are actually in the case of Moses, not in the case of Joseph. Not many people that we know got betrayed like Joseph was betrayed. But in the case of Moses, we shouldn't generalize. We shouldn't feel that nobody likes us, because this is usually not true. But in any case, even if someone really doesn't like me, if someone really rejects me, it doesn't matter, because God always loves me. If I focus on God and I get my support and love from God, it's not gonna matter to me what other people think. Second thing, which is actually happens to us many times, that sometimes I am the one who is rejecting. We can see this in the life of Joseph. We can see the opposite of this in the life of Joseph. Joseph loved his brothers. What if Joseph did not like his brothers, and it was because of him that his brothers hated him? Sometimes this happens to us. I don't like a person, for example, and I don't offer him, or I don't show him love, and then that person does something wrong to me. So I say, okay, you know what? He did that to me, so I'm not going to talk to him. Well, originally, I actually didn't like him. So maybe it's my fault. And that's why sometimes, or many times, it's very good to talk it out with the person. And if I feel that there is something between me and someone, how about I say, is there something that I did that bothered you? Is there anything I can help you with? You will be surprised that many times that person doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I keep feeling in my heart that this person doesn't like me, this person has a problem with me, and then when I go talk to him, there's actually nothing. Maybe he's going through a hard time. Exactly like the Egyptian in the case of Moses. Why did this Egyptian tell Moses, go away, who made you prince over us? Because he was a slave, and he was persecuted, and he was being beaten, and he had a miserable life. It wasn't about Moses. It was about him having a lot of hard time that he's going through. So sometimes we may come across someone that is going through a lot in his life, and then maybe that person is not going to smile to me one day, and then I go back home and feel, oh, you know what, he doesn't like me, and I have all these scenarios in my mind. And in fact, this person didn't even see me. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about. It's just that he has a problem. And sometimes, again, like I said, it may start with me that I'm not, I don't want to get along with that person, so it comes back and so on. The last point we want to talk about, which is very crucial, whatever happens, don't reject yourself. If I let feelings of rejection get to me, it may get to the point where I don't like myself. And this is a big problem. And I keep feeling that, my family doesn't like me, my friends don't like me, the people at church don't include me with them, the people at work, single me out. I don't have friends. I don't have anyone who invites me to like events. And then at the end of all this, if I let all these negative thoughts like take place inside me, what's going to happen at the end? That I will feel that I am a rejected person. I'm a person that no one likes. How is that going to affect me? That this will cause me to think or to feel that I reject myself. I don't accept myself. No one accepts me, so the projection of that is I don't accept myself either. If I get to this point, it's very dangerous because, in fact, in order to improve, in order to get better, I need to accept myself. And I need to accept that I have a lot of good things and I have things to work on. And that's all of us, all human beings. We have shortcomings in our characters that we need to work on. Finally, nothing is going to happen without our relationship with God. The reason why Moses got from point A to point B, the reason why he completely forgot about that rejection and he became the great Moses that we know about is because he was very, very close to God. The reason why Joseph, the disaster that happened to him did not affect him is because he always focused his eyes on God. But let's go back to Moses for a second. Moses was called, the God's friend, the one who can talk to God at any time. In fact, God himself said about Moses, one time Aaron and Miriam, his siblings, they complained about him. They say, why do you rule over us? We are Levites too, like God spoke with us too. Why are you the boss? And you know what happened at the time, right? That God got really angry with Aaron, and then he made Miriam a leper, and Moses prayed for her. But then, if you remember what God told Aaron and Miriam at that time, he told them, if I want to talk to one of you, I will appear to you in a vision or a dream. But when I want to talk to Moses, I talk to him face to face. That's only Moses. He was the only single character that we know about that whenever he wanted to talk to God, he talked to him face to face. And that's why he was able to overcome. It's not easy to overcome these negative thoughts, especially if they have been brewing inside me for like a long time. The only way to overcome this is by being close to God. And the only way I can help myself and others is if I am close to God. If I always talk with him, I always tell him about what's in my heart. So please, whether we want to work on this for ourselves, or whether we want to help our kids at home, or whether we want to help the people we serve at church, we need to have a personal interaction with God. We need to have a conversation with God every single day. Because this is something that, maybe it was built over time. It's going to need some time to go away as well. And in the case of Moses, many things took a long time. Actually, some things took 40 years for him to heal. But it doesn't matter how long it takes. What matters is I need to start. I need to talk to God every day. I need to talk to him about my negative thoughts, and I need to talk to him about helping my kids that are having negative thoughts. So I felt that this is such an important issue that we all face, that I wanted to talk to you about, share it together. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead. I see أبونا شنودة. لو تحب أبونا تزود حاجة, please go ahead.